I've been a long-haul trucker for just over 4 years now. Trucking was never supposed to be a career path for me, but it's one I'm grateful I took. I never really liked being around other people, let alone interacting with them. I guess when you grow up being picked on, made to feel like a social outcast, you eventually realize solitude is the best friend you could possibly have. I didn't even go to public college. Once high school was ultimately in the rearview window, the idea of still being surrounded by pretentious kids my age did not sit well with me. I instead studied online, but even after my degree, I was still determined to avoid human contact by any means necessary. After weighing my future options, I eventually came upon a life-changing epiphany. What career is more lonely than traveling the roads of America as an honest-to-God, working-class trucker? Not much else was my answer. I'd spend weeks on the road all on my own, while in theory, being my own boss. Honestly, the trucker life sounded completely ideal. With a fancy IT degree and a white clean driving record, I eventually found employment for a company in Phoenix. All year long, I would haul cargo through Arizona's Sonoran desert to the crumbling society that is California, with very little human interaction whatsoever. I loved being on the road for hours on end. Despite the occasional traffic, I welcomed the silence of the humming roads and highways. Hell, I was so into the trucker way of life I even dressed like one. You know, the flannel shirt, baseball cap, lack of shaving or any personal hygiene. My diet was basically gas station junk food and any drink that had caffeine in it. Don't get me wrong, trucking is still a very demanding job. There's deadlines to meet, crippling fatigue of long hours, constantly checklisting the working parts of your truck. Even though I welcome the silence and solitude of long-haul trucking, sometimes the loneliness gets to me. I don't like admitting that to myself, but even the most reclusive people get too lonely ever so often. Nevertheless, I still love the trucker way of life. But what I love most about this job more than anything else is driving through the empty desert. The silence, the natural beauty of the landscape. The desert affords you the right balance of solitude, just you and nature. You either feel transported back in time among the first settlers of the West, or to the distant future on a far-off desert planet. You lose your thoughts in the desert. It absolves you of them. Like any old job, you learn on it. I learned sleep is key, that every minute detail of a routine inspection is essential. But the most important thing I learned came from an interaction with a fellow trucker in a gas station. Standing in line on a painfully busy afternoon, a bearded gentleman turns around in front of me, cradling a six-pack beneath the sleeve of his food-stained hoodie. "Is that your rig right out there? The red one?" the man inquired. Yeah, it is," I confirmed reservedly. "Haven't been doing this long, have you?" He then determined, acknowledging my age and unnecessarily dark bags under my eyes. "I swear the truckers in this country are getting younger by the year. Most don't last more than 6 months. They can't handle the long miles on their own. They fill out an application and expect it to be a cakewalk." I at first thought the older and more experienced trucker was trying to scare me out of a job. He probably didn't like the idea of kids from my generation, with our modern privileges and half-assed work ethics replacing working-class Joes like him that keep the country running. I didn't blame him for that. I was actually in agreement. Keeping my eyes down to the dirt-trodden floor, I then peer up to the man in front of me, late to realize he is no longer talking and is instead staring in a manner that demanded my attention. "Let me give you some advice, Sonny. The best advice you'll need for the road. Treat that rig of yours like it's your home, because it is. You'll spend more time in there than anywhere else for the next 20 years. I didn't know it at the time, but I would have that exact same conversation on a monthly basis. Truckers at gas stations or rest areas asking how long I've been trucking for, or when my first tire blowout was. That wouldn't be for at least a few months. But the weirdest trucker conversations I ever experienced were the ones I inadvertently eavesdropped on. Apparently, the longer you've been trucking, the more strange and ineffable experiences you have. I'm not talking about the occasional truck jacking attempt or hitchhiker pickup. I'm talking about the unexplained. Overhearing a particular conversation at a rest area, I heard one trucker say to another that during his last job, trucking from Oregon to Washington, he was driving through the mountains when seemingly out of nowhere, a tall, hairy figure made its presence known. I swear to the good Lord, the goddamn thing looked like an ape. Truckers in the Northwest see them all the time. That's nothing, replied the other trucker. I knew a guy who worked through Ohio that said he ran over what he thought was a big dog. Next thing, the mutt gets up and hobbles away on its two back legs. Crazy bastard said it looked like a werewolf. I've heard other things from truckers too. Strange, inhuman encounters. Ghostly apparitions appearing on the side of the highway. The apparitions always appear to be the same. A thin woman with long dark hair, wearing a pale white dress. Luckily, I had never experienced anything remotely like that. All I had was the road, the desert. I never really believed in that stuff anyway. I didn't believe in Bigfoot or Ohio dogmen, nor did I believe our government secretly controlled by shape-shifting lizard people. Maybe I was open to the idea of ghosts, but as far as I was concerned, the supernatural didn't exist. It's not that I was a skeptic or anything. I just didn't respect life enough for something like the paranormal to be a real thing. But all that would change through one unexpected and very human encounter. By this point in my life, I had been a trucker for around 3 years. Just as it had always been, I picked up cargo from Phoenix and journeyed through highways, towns, and desert until reaching my destination in California. I really hated California. Not its desert, but the people, the towns, and cities. I hated everything it was supposed to stand for. The American dream that hides an underbelly of so much that's wrong with our society. God, I don't even know what I'm saying. I guess I'm just bitter. A bitter, lonesome trucker traveling the roads. I had just made my 3rd haul of the year driving from Arizona to North California. Once the cargo was dropped, I then looked forward to going home and gaining some much-needed time off. Making my way through SoCal that evening, I decided I was just going to drive through the night and keep going the next day, not that I was supposed to. Not stopping that night meant I'd surpass my 11 allocated hours. Pretty reckless, I know. I was now on the outskirts of some town I hated passing through. Thankfully, this was the last unbearable town on my way to reaching the state border a mere 2 hours away. A radio station was blasting through the speakers to keep me alert, when suddenly, on the side of the road, a shape appears from the darkness and through the headlights. No, it wasn't an apparition or some cryptid. It was just a hitchhiker. First thing I see being their outstretched arm and thumb. I've had my own personal rules since becoming a trucker, and not picking up hitchhikers has always been one of them. You just never know who might be getting into your rig. Just as I'm about ready to drive past them, I was surprised to look down from my cab and see the thumb of the hitchhiker belonged to a girl. A girl no older than 16 years old. God, what's this kid doing out here at this time of night? I thought to myself. Once I passed by her, I then looked back to the girl's reflection in my side mirror, only to fear the worst. Any creep in a car could offer her a ride. What sort of trouble had this girl gotten herself into if she was willing to hitch a ride at this hour? I just wanted to keep on driving. Who this girl was, or what she's doing, was none of my business. But for some reason, I just couldn't let it go. This girl was a perfect stranger to me. Nevertheless, she was the one who needed a stranger's help. God damn it, I thought. Don't do it. Don't be a good Samaritan. Just keep driving to the state border. That's what they pay you for. Already breaking one trucking regulation that night, I was now on the brink of breaking my own. When I finally give in to a moral conscience, I'm surprised to find my turn signal is blinking as I prepare to pull over roadside. After beeping my horn to get the girl's attention, I watch through the side mirror as she quickly makes her way over. Once I see her approach, I open the passenger door for her to climb inside. "Hey, thanks," the girl exclaims as she crawls her way up into the cab. It was only now up close did I realize just how young this girl was. Her stature was smaller than I first thought, making me think she must have been no older than 15. In no mood to make small talk with a random kid I just picked up, I get straight to the point and ask how far they're needing to go. "Oh, well, that depends," she says. "Where is it you're going?" "Arizona," I reply. "That's great," says the girl spontaneously. "I need to get to New Mexico." Why this girl was needing to get to New Mexico, I didn't know, nor did I ask. Phoenix was still a 3-hour drive from the state border, and I'll be damned if I was going to drive her that far. "I can only take you as far as the next town," I said unapologetically. "Oh, well, that's okay," she replied before giggling. "It's not like I'm in a position to negotiate, right?" No, she was not. Continuing to drive to the next town, the silence inside the cab kept us separated. Although I'm usually welcoming to a little peace and quiet, when the silence is between you and another person, the lingering awkwardness sucks the air right out of the room. Therefore, I felt an unfamiliar urge to throw a question or two her way. Not that it's my business or anything, but what's a kid your age doing by the road at this time of night? It's like I said, I need to get to New Mexico. "Do you have family there?" I asked, hoping internally that was the reason. No," was her chirpy response. "Well, are you a runaway?" I then inquired, as though we were playing a game of 21 questions. I guess. But that's not why I'm going to New Mexico." Quickly becoming tired of this game, I then stop with the questioning. "That's all right," I say. "It's not exactly any of my business." "No, it's not that. It's just..." The girl pauses before continuing on. "If I told you the real reason, you'd think I was crazy." "And why would I think that?" I asked, already back to playing the game. Well, the last person to give me a ride certainly thought so. That wasn't a good sign, I thought. Now afraid to ask any more of my remaining questions, I simply let the silence refill the cab. This was an error on my part because the girl clearly saw the silence as an invitation to continue. "All right, I'll tell you," she went on. "You look like the kind of guy who believes this stuff anyway. But in case you're not, you have to promise not to kick me out when I do. I'm not going to leave some kid out in the middle of nowhere," I reassured her. "Even if you are crazy." I worried that last part sounded a little insensitive. "Okay, well, here it goes." The girl again chooses to pause, as though for dramatic effect, before she then tells me her reason for hitchhiking across 2 states. "I'm looking for aliens." Aliens? Did she really just say she's looking for aliens? Please tell me this kid's pulling my chain. "Yeah, you know, extraterrestrials." She then clarified, like I didn't already know what the hell aliens were. I assumed the girl was joking with me. After all, New Mexico supposedly had a UFO crash land in the desert once upon a time, and so, rather half-assedly, I played along. "Why are you looking for aliens?" As I wait impatiently for the girl's juvenile response, that's when she said what I really wasn't expecting. "Well, I was abducted by them." Great. Now we're playing a whole new game, I thought. But then she continues. "I was only 9 years old when it happened. I was fast asleep in my room, when all of a sudden, I wake up to find these strange creatures lurking over me." Wait, is she really continuing with this story? I guess she doesn't realize the joke's been overplayed. Next thing I know, I'm in this bright metallic room with curves instead of corners, and I realize I'm tied down on top of some surface because I can't move. It was like I was paralyzed. "Hold on a minute," I now thought concernedly. Then these creatures were over me again. I could see them so clearly. They were monstrous. Their arms were thin and spindly, sort of like insects, but their skin was pale and hairless. They weren't very tall, but their eyes were so large. It was like staring into a black abyss. Okay, this has gone on long enough, I again thought to myself, declining to say it out loud. One of them injected a needle into my arm. It was so thin and sharp I barely even felt it. But then I saw one of them was holding some kind of instrument. They pressed it against my ear, and the next thing I feel is an excruciating pain inside my brain. "Stop. Stop right now," I needed to say to her. This was not funny anymore, nor was it ever. I wanted to scream so badly, but I couldn't move. I was so afraid. But then one of them spoke to me. They spoke to me with their mind. They said it would all be over soon and there was nothing to be afraid of. It would soon be over. Okay, you can stop now, that's enough. I get it, I finally interrupted. You think I'm joking, don't you? The girl now asked me with calmness surprisingly in her voice. Well, I wish I was joking. But I'm not. I really had no idea what to think at this point. This girl had to be messing with me. Only she was taking it way too far. And if she wasn't, if she really thought aliens had abducted her, then shit. Without a clue what to do or say next, I just simply played along and humored her. At least that was better than confronting her on a lie. Have you told your parents you were abducted by aliens? Not at first, she admitted, but I kept waking up screaming in the middle of the night. It got so bad they had to take me to a psychiatrist, and that's when I told them. It was this point in the conversation that I finally processed the girl wasn't joking with me. She was being 100% serious, and although she was just a kid, I now felt very unsafe. They thought maybe I was schizophrenic, she continued, but I was later diagnosed with PTSD. When I kept repeating my abduction story, they said whatever happened to me was so traumatic, my mind created a fantastical event so to deal with it. Yep, she's not joking. This girl I picked up by the road was completely insane. It's just my luck, I thought. The first hitchhiker I stopped for, and they're a crazy person. Gah, why couldn't I have picked up a murderer instead? At least then it would be quick. After the girl confessed all this to me, I must have gone silent for a while. And rightly so, because breaking the awkward silence inside the cab, the girl then asks me so. Do you believe in aliens? Not unless I see them with my own eyes, I admitted, keeping my eyes firmly on the road. I was too uneasy to even look her way. That's okay. A lot of people don't. But then again, a lot of people do. I sensed she was going to continue on the topic of extraterrestrials, and I, for one, was not prepared for it. The government practically confirmed it a few years ago, you know. They released military footage capturing UFOs. Well, you're supposed to call them UAPs now, but I prefer UFOs. The next town was still another 20 minutes away, and I just prayed she wouldn't continue with this for much longer. You've heard all about the Roswell incident, haven't you? I have. That was partly a lie. I just didn't want her to explain it to me. Well, that's when the whole UFO craze began. Once we developed nuclear weapons, people were seeing flying saucers everywhere. They're very concerned with our planet, you know. It's partly because they live here too. Great. Now she thinks they live among us. Next, I suppose she'd tell me she was an alien. You know all those cattle mutilations? Well, they're real too. You can see pictures of them online. Cattle mutilations? That's where we're at now? Good God, just rob and shoot me already. They're always missing the same body parts. An eye, part of their jaw, their reproductive organs. Are you sure it wasn't just scavengers? I skeptically thought to ask, not that I wanted to encourage this conversation further. You know, it's not just cattle that are mutilated. It's us too. Don't even go there. I was one of the lucky ones. Some people are abducted and then returned. Some don't return at all. But some return. Not all in one piece. I should have said something. I should have told her to stop. This was my rig, and if I wanted her to stop talking, all I had to do was say it. Did you know Brazil is a huge UFO hotspot? They get more sightings than we do. Where was she going with this? Back in the 80s, they found a body in a reservoir over there. The body belonged to a man. But the man had parts of him missing. This was a nightmare, I thought. I'm in a living hell. The freedom this job gave me has now been forcibly stripped away. But the crazy part is, his internal organs were missing. They found 2 small holes in his chest. That's how they removed them. They sucked the organs right out of him. Stop. Just stop. I bellowed at her, like I should have done minutes ago. It's the middle of the night, and I don't need to hear this. We're nearly at the next town already, so why don't we just remain quiet for the time being? I could barely see the girl through the darkness, but I knew my outburst caught her by surprise. Okay, she agreed, my bad. The state border really couldn't get here soon enough. I just wanted this whole California nightmare to be over with. But I also couldn't help wondering something. If this girl believes she was abducted by aliens, then why would she be looking for them? I fought the urge to ask her that. I knew if I did, I would be opening up a whole new can of worms. I'm sorry, the girl suddenly whimpers across from me, her tone now drastically different to the crazed monologue she just delivered. I'm sorry I told you all that stuff. I know how dangerous it is getting rides from strangers, and I figured if I told you all that, you would be more scared of me than I am of you. So it was a game she was playing. A scare game. Well, good job, I admitted, feeling well and truly spooked. You know, I don't usually pick up hitchhikers, but you're just a kid. I figured if I didn't help you out, someone far worse was going to. The girl again fell silent for a moment, but I could see in my side vision she was looking my way. Thank you, she replied. A simple thank you. We remained in silence for the next few minutes, and I now started to feel bad for this girl. Maybe she was crazy and delusional, but she was still just a kid. All alone and far from home. She must have been terrified. What was going to happen once I got rid of her? If she was hitching rides, she clearly didn't have any money. How would the next person react once she told them her abduction story? Don't you dare do it. Just drop her off and go straight home. I don't owe this poor girl anything. God damn it. Hey, listen, I began, knowing all too well this was a mistake since I'm heading east anyways. Why don't you just tag along for the ride? Really? You mean I don't have to get out at the next town? The girl sought joyously for reassurance. I don't think I could live with myself if I didn't, I confirmed to her. You're just a kid after all. Thank you, she repeated graciously. But first things first, I then said, we need to go over some ground rules. This is my rig, and what I say goes. Got that? I felt stupid just saying that like an inexperienced babysitter. Rule number 1, no more talk of aliens or UFOs. That means no more cattle mutilations or mutilations of the sort. That's reasonable, I guess, she approved. Rule number 2, when we stop somewhere like a rest area, do me a favor and make yourself good and scarce. I don't need other truckers thinking I abducted you. Shit, that was a poor choice of words. And the last rule, this was more of a request than a rule, but I was going to say it anyways. Once you find what you're looking for, get your ass straight back home. Your family are probably worried sick. That's not a rule, that's a demand, she pointed out. But right, I get it. No more alien talk, make myself scarce, and I'll work on the last one. I sincerely hoped she did. Once the rules were laid out, we both returned to silence, the hum of the road finally taking over. I'm Chrissy, by the way, the girl uttered casually. I guess we ought to know each other's names if we're going to travel together. Well, Chrissy, it's nice to meet you. I thank God my social skills were off. If you're hungry, there's some food and water in the back. I'd offer you a place to rest back there, but it probably doesn't smell too fresh. Yeah, I noticed. This kid was getting on my nerves already. Driving the night away, we eventually crossed the state border and into Arizona. By early daylight, and with the beaming desert sun shining through the cab, I finally got a glimpse of Chrissy's appearance. Her hair was long and brown with faint freckles on her cheeks. If I was still in high school, she'd have been the kind of girl who wouldn't look at me twice. Despite her adult bravery, Chrissy acted just like any 15-year-old would. She left a mess of food on the floor, rested her dirty Converse shoes above my glove compartment. But worst of all, she talked to me. Although the topic of extraterrestrials thankfully never came up, I was mad at myself for not making a rule of no small talk or chummy business. But the worst thing about it was, I liked having someone to talk to for once. Remember when I said even the most reclusive people get too lonely now and then? Well, that was true. And even though I believed Chrissy was a burden to me, I was surprised to find I was enjoying her company so much so, I almost completely forgot she was a crazy person who believed in aliens. When Chrissy and I were more comfortable in each other's company, I then asked her something that for the first time on this drive brought out a side of her I hadn't yet seen. Worse than that, I had broken rule number 1. "Can I ask you something?" "It's your truck," she replied, a simple yes or no response not being adequate. "If you believe you were abducted by aliens, then why on earth are you looking for them?" Ever since I picked her up roadside, Chrissy was never shy of words, but for the very first time, she appeared lost for them. While I waited anxiously for her to say something, keeping my eyes firmly on the desert road, I then turned to see Chrissy was too fixated on the weathered landscape to talk, admiring the jagged peaks of the faraway mountains. It was a little late, but I finally had my wish of complete silence. Not that I wished it anymore. "Imagine something terrible happened to you," she began, as though the pause in our conversation was so to rehearse a well-thought-out response. "Something so terrible that you can't tell anyone about it. But then you do tell them, and when you do, they tell you the terrible thing never even happened." Chrissy's words had changed. Up until now, her voice was full of enthusiasm and childlike awe. But now, it was pure sadness. Not fear. Not trauma. Sadness. "I know what happened to me real was. Even if you don't. But I still need to prove to myself that what happened did happen. I just need to know I'm not crazy." I didn't think she was crazy. Not anymore. But I knew she was damaged. Something traumatic clearly happened to her, and it was going to impact her whole future. I wasn't a kid anymore. I wasn't a victim of alien abduction. But somehow, I could relate. I don't care what happens to me. I don't care if I end up like that guy in Brazil. If the last thing I see is a craft flying above me, or the surgical instrument of some creature, I can die happy. I can die knowing I was right. This poor kid, I thought. I now knew why I could relate to Chrissy so easily. It was because she too was alone. I don't mean because she was a runaway, whether she left home or not. It didn't matter. She would always feel alone. "Hey, can I ask you something?" Chrissy unexpectedly requested. I now sensed it was my turn to share something personal, which was unfortunate, because I really didn't want to. "Did you really become a trucker just so you could be alone?" "Yeah," I said simply. "Well, don't you ever get lonely, even if you like being alone?" It was true. I do get lonely, and I always knew the reason why. "Here's the thing, Chrissy," I started, "when you grow up feeling like you never truly fit in, you have to tell yourself you prefer solitude. It might not be true, but when you live your life on a lie, at least life is bearable." Chrissy didn't have a response for this. She let the silent hum of wheels on dirt eat up the momentary silence. Silence allowed her to rehearse the right words. "Well, you're not alone now," she blurted out, "and neither am I. But if you ever do get lonely, just remember this." I waited patiently for the words of comfort to fall from her mouth. "We are not alone in the universe. Someone or something may always be watching." I know Chrissy was trying to be reassuring and a little funny at her own expense, but did she really have to imply I was always being watched? "I thought we agreed on no alien talk?" I said playfully. "You're the one who brought it up," she replied, as her gaze once again returned to the desert's eroding landscape. Chrissy fell asleep not long after. The poor kid wasn't used to the heat of the desert. I was perfectly altered to it. And with Chrissy in dreamland, it was now just me, my rig, and the stretch of deserted highway in front of us. As the day bore on, I watched in my side mirror as the sun now touched the sky's glass ceiling, and rather bizarrely it was perfectly aligned over the road, as though the sun was really a giant glowing orb hovering over, trying to guide us away from our destination and back to the start. After a handful of gas stations and one brief nap later, we had now entered a small desert town in the middle of nowhere. Although I promised to take Chrissy as far as Phoenix, I actually took a slight detour. This town was not Chrissy's intended destination, but I chose to stop here anyway. The reason I did was because, having passed through this town in the past, I had a feeling this was a place she wanted to be. Despite its remoteness and minuscule size, the town had clearly gone to great lengths to display itself as buzzing hub for you FO fanatics. The walls of the buildings were spray-painted with flying saucers in the night sky, where cutouts and blow-ups of little green men lined the less than inhabited streets. I guess this town had a UFO sighting in its past and took it as an opportunity to make some tourist bucks. Chrissy wasn't awake when we reached the town. The kids slept more than a carefree baby, but I guess when you're a runaway, always on the move to reach a faraway destination, a good night's sleep is always just as far. As a trucker, I could more than relate. Parking up beside the town's only gas station, I rolled down the window to let the heat and faint breeze wake her up. "Where are we?" She stirred from her seat. "Are we here already?" "Not exactly," I said, anxiously anticipating the moment she spotted the town's unearthly decor, "but I figured you would want to stop here anyway." Continuing to stare out the window with sleepy eyes, Chrissy finally noticed the little green men. "Is that what I think it is?" Excitement filling her voice. "What is this place?" "It's the last stop," I said, letting her know this is where we part ways. Hauling down from the rig, Chrissy continued to peer around. She seemed more than content to be left in this place on her own. Regardless, I didn't want her thinking I just kicked her to the curb, and so I gave her as much cash as I could afford to give, along with a backpack full of junk food. "I can't thank you enough for what you've done for me," she said, sadness appearing to veil her gratitude. "I wish there was a way I could repay you. Her company these past 2 days was payment enough. God knows how much I needed it." Chrissy became emotional by this point, trying her best to keep in the tears, not because she was sad we were parting ways, but because my willingness to help had truly touched her. Maybe I renewed her faith in humanity or something. I know she did for me. "I hope you find what you're looking for," I said to her, breaking the sad silence. "But do me a favor, will you? Once you find it, get yourself home to your folks. If not for them, for me, I will," she promised. "I wouldn't think of breaking your third rule." With nothing left between us to say but a final farewell, I was then surprised when Chrissy wrapped her arms around me, the side of her freckled cheek placed against my chest. "Goodbye," she said simply. "Goodbye, kiddo," I reciprocated, as I awkwardly but gently patted her on the back. Even with her, the physical touch of another human being was still uncomfortable for me. With everything said and done, I returned inside my rig. I pulled out of the gas station and onto the road, where I saw Chrissy still by the sidewalk. Like the night we met, she stood gazing up into the cab at me, but instead of an outstretched thumb, she was waving goodbye. The last I saw of her, she was crossing the street through the reflection of my side mirror. It's now been a year since I last saw Chrissy, and I haven't seen her since. I'm still hauling the same job, inside the very same rig. Nothing much has really changed for me. Once my next long haul started, I still kept an eye out for Chrissy, hoping to see her in the next town, trying to hitch a ride by the highway, or even foolishly wandering the desert. I suppose it's a good thing I haven't seen her after all this time, because that could mean she found what she was looking for. I have to tell myself that, or otherwise, I'll just fear the worst. I'm always checking the news any chance I get, trying to see if Chrissy found her way home. Either that, or I'm scrolling down different lists of the recently deceased, hoping not to read a familiar name. Thankfully, the few Chrissys on those lists haven't matched her face. I almost thought I saw her once, late one night on the desert highway. She blurred into fruition for a moment, holding out her thumb for me to pull over. When I do pull over and wait, there is no one whatsoever. Remember when I said I'm open to the existence of ghosts? Well, that's why. Because if the worst was true, at least I knew where she was. If I'm being perfectly honest, I'm pretty sure I was just hallucinating. That happens to truckers sometimes. It happens more than you would think. I'm not always looking for Chrissy. Sometimes I try and look out for what she's been looking for. Whether that be strange lights in the night sky or an unidentified object floating through the desert. I guess if I see something unexplainable like that, then there's a chance Chrissy may have seen something too. At least that way, there will be closure for us both. Over the past year or so, I'm still yet to see anything. Not Chrissy or anything else. If anyone's happened to see a 15-year-old girl by the name of Chrissy, whether it be by the highway, whether she hitched a ride from you, or even if you've seen someone matching her description, kindly put my mind at ease and let me know. If you happen to see her in your future, do me a solid and help her out, even if it's just a ride to the next town. I know she would appreciate it. Things have never quite felt the same since Chrissy walked in and out of my life, but I'm still glad she did. You learn a lot of things with this job, but with her, the only hitchhiker I've picked up to date, I think I learned the greatest life lesson of all. No matter who you are or what solitude means to you, we never have to be alone in this universe.